Mr. Santos, am I audible to you? Mr. Santos, are we audible to you?
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Preetam Pandit for formally introducing Attorney Santos.
He is currently one of the attorneys of the Legal Division of the Commission of Human Rights, Region 3 Office. He graduated while lecturing in elementary, high school, and received magna cum laude distinction in the bachelor's degree. He took his Juris Doctor at the University of Stockholm, passed the bar exams in 2019. Aside from his full-time work, he is the commission and his commitment as a legal consultant to his family-owned land services office. He manages his commitment as a legal consultant to his family-owned land services office. He manages to work as a part-time professor and share his content expertise to understand to the undergraduate and graduate students of La Consortium University of the Philippines, Bulacan State University, Financials, Lansing University, Laguna Tarlac University School of Law. He teaches obligations and contract business laws, regulatory framework, and legal issues in business. Introduction to the alumnus of the Global Undergraduate Exchange Program, University of Tennessee, Mobile, Tennessee, USA, a scholarship program administered by Philippines American Educational Foundation, or also known as Fulbright Philippines. A speaker for various contents, causes, and advocacies, a co-founder of Polarized Philippines and Bunso also Cell Program, an editor-in-chief, a student leader, and a member of different community-led organizations in local, national, and international levels. He is Ati Aloy Range Santos. I would like to welcome Ati Aloy Range Santos with big round of applause. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. Once again, I am Aloy Renz P. Santos. I am affiliated with the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines here in Central Luzon, and it is my great honor to welcome you to this discussion on the pivotal role of forensic science in human rights investigation. So our goal today is to explore how forensic methodologies can significantly contribute to the quest for justice, ensuring accountability, and upholding the fundamental rights that are central to our society. So this presentation, titled Role of Forensic and Human Rights Investigation, Ensuring Accountability and Upholding Justice, it aims to provide you a thorough understanding of how forensic science serves a powerful tool in human rights work. We will delve into various aspects, including the collection and preservation of evidence, crime scene documentation, and the legal admissibility of forensic findings. So by the end of this session, you will gain insights into the interconnectedness of human rights and forensic science, and how forensic science aids in protecting the dignity and rights of all individuals. So you can see on the screen my full name, my email address, my contact numbers, and my social media handles. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions or provide more insights regarding this discussion. So once again, I am Aloy. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And basically, if at some point during my presentation you feel uncomfortable because of the cases that I will share, feel free to leave the hall or to at least move out eventually, and then you can reach out to me so that we can talk why you feel uncomfortable. Understood? So I want this to be a safe space to everyone, and I would really like to promote, of course, while we are discussing and learning from one another, that for our human rights are being upheld. Understood? We're okay with that? Now, uh, next slide, please. So to start off, no, to begin, no, it is crucial to establish the appropriate mood for this session. So we need to engage, no, our emotions, because why? I want you to be emotionally invested into this. Why? Because emotion drives attention, and then attention drives learning. So of course, the goal of the Sandeep University is for us to learn or relearn things. And if we can invest so much time on Facebook scrolling our news feed, no, definitely I want you to invest your or to have emotional investment with our discussion, because we are talking lives and the welfare of the people here. So I want to remind you that this presentation is all about ensuring the dignity, the freedom, and the well-being of individuals, while forensic science provides the tools to investigate and substantiate claims of human rights violation. Next slide, please. So, allow me to borrow the words of the great Nelson Mandela. Uh, he said before, no, in his statement, to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. So we recognize that forensic science offer an empirical pathway to defend these rights. So this conference, all of the topics, no, that you have been listening with or you have been understanding with since day one, no, seeks to unite forensic experts around the world to share knowledge, to share best practices and innovations. And by integrating forensic science into human rights investigation, we enhance the effectiveness, we enhance the efficiency of uncovering truths, holding perpetrators accountable, and delivering justice to victims. So our discussions today will build on these foundational principles highlighted in this particular conference. Next slide. As mentioned, no, at the end of the session, you as the participants uh will have a comprehensive understanding of the two main objectives. Number one, uh, you will be able to articulate how forensic science is integral to human rights and to human rights work, providing the evidence needed to substantiate claims of violation. And number two, we will explore we will explore various forensic science techniques or forensic techniques and their application in ensuring that human rights are respected and upheld, from crime scene investigation to post-mortem examination. So additionally, we will consider relevant statistics such as those from the Philippine Statistics Authority, which highlight educational disparities as a human rights issue. So understanding this broader context will enhance our discussion on the application of forensic science in addressing such violations. Are you still with me? So can I hear a clap now if you are still listening? Right. So thank you everyone. Now, next slide please. You have been hearing from me the words human rights. But what do we mean when we say human rights? So to ground our discussion, let's consider how leading organizations define human rights. According to the United Nations, human rights are inherent to all human beings, and without which individual cannot live as human beings. In the Commission on Human Rights in my country, here in the Philippines, human rights are called as supreme, inherent, and inalienable rights to life, dignity, and self-development. According to Amnesty International, these are basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person from birth until death, including life, liberty, freedom of thought, expression, and equality before the law. So these definitions basically underscore the universal and inalienable nature of human rights, which forensic science aims to protect and uphold. By anchoring our work in these definitions, we align our forensic investigations with the core principles of human rights, ensuring that our efforts contribute to the broader mission of safeguarding human dignity and justice. Next slide. So we know now the definition of human rights. The question is why human rights are essential, no? And why are human rights essential? No? Uh Number one, no? Human rights are essential for several reasons. Number one, they affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every individual. Number two, social stability. By protecting rights, we promote social cohesion and social stability. Number three, upholding human rights is fundamental to the rule of law, ensuring that justice prevails. Number four, they address critical humanitarian issues, preventing abuse and exploitation. And number five, respecting human rights foster conditions for economic growth and development. So, what is the impact of forensic science on this reasons why human rights are essential? Forensic science plays a critical role in investigating violations of these essential rights. So by providing concrete evidence, forensic experts help to uncover truths, bring perpetrators to justice, and ensure that victims receive the recognition and reparations they deserve. These in turn reinforces the foundational importance of human rights in building a just and equitable society. Now, next slide. What are the sources of human rights? So, we say that human rights are inherent. So these sources that I am about to mention, these are not sources per se because the fact that we are alive, no, we have human rights. So to all of you here, uh, in our session right now, I want you to look on your seatmates. Look on your right, look on your left, no, and ask and consider, no, your seatmates. Are they humans? No, do they look like a human? Definitely, because they have human rights, right? So every one of us, no, upon our conception, no, upon our birth, we have our human rights. Understood? Now, why do we have these sources of human rights? These sources of human rights or these documents, no, uh, this is to ensure that we have legal basis in insisting our human rights. So what are the sources of human rights? We have the so-called uh the Holy Trinity of human rights. The next slide, please. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And lastly, we have the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The UDHR are uh are mere declarations. That's why it is a universal declaration. It is called Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So by the word itself, we understand that these are mere declaration. So the some of the countries they're having a hard time uh insisting this particular bill or particular international standards. Hence, that is the birth of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So, the UDHR, it was adopted on December 10, 1948. That's why every 10th of December, we celebrate the International Human Rights Day. Because the UDHR is basically the mother document. This is a document that was produced by the member states of the United Nations after the World War II. So this is to ensure that no rights will be violated after the World War. Understood? So again, the UDHR is the mother document. This is the very Bible of human rights. Again, and it was adopted when? December 10, 1948. And that is primarily the reason why we celebrate or why we have International Human Rights Day every 10th of December. On the other hand, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, these are legally binding treaty. And the Philippines is one of the signatories. No, and basically India also. So the ICCPR or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, it obligates the state to respect the civil and political rights of the individuals. You can see on my presentation that there is optional protocol 1 and optional protocol 2. So if the country ratifies optional protocol 1 and also optional protocol 2, they have the option no to follow this optional protocol. The optional protocol 1, one of the key aspect of this particular protocol is the filing of individual claims. Whereas optional protocol 2, one of the highlights of this protocol is the abolition of the death penalty. Understood? Now, we have the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. This International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, this is a treaty also. This is a legally binding treaty that ensures the protection of economic, social, and cultural rights. So again, these three documents, the UDHR, the ICCPR, and the ICESCR, these documents form the bedrock of international human rights law. And forensic science supports the enforcement of these rights by providing the evidence needed to hold violators accountable. So by adhering these principles outlined in these covenants, forensics investigation contribute to the global effort to uphold and protect human rights. Next slide. We also have our next slide, no? Next slide. Next slide. We also have next slide. So sorry, no. These are some of the examples of the key civil and political rights. At this point, I want to remind everybody that the right to life, no, our right to life is our primary human right. Now, again, no, our right to life is our primary human right. Next slide. So we have again the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Next slide. And these are some of the examples of the economic, social, and cultural rights. You can see there, we have the right to food, the right to health, the right to education. And when we speak of right to health and right to education, we pertains to right to highest attainable standard of health. When we speak of right to education, we speak of the right to quality education. You follow? So this is the highest ultimate standard. Understood? Now, uh, we also have our major international convention. Next slide, please. So, we have at least, no, there are 9 major international conventions, no? So, these are the babies of the UDHR. No, but what I want to highlight in this particular session that could help to that could be somehow related to forensic science is number one, we have the Convention Against Torture, the CAT. Convention Against Torture. Basically, it prohibits torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. I want you to also focus on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the CRC. Well, basically, by the title of the convention itself, we know for in fact that this is all about protection of the rights of the children. But I want to highlight that in under CRC, I want you to always think of the best interest of the child. No, that particular principle, that particular provision of the CRC. And lastly, we have the intern. I would like to point out the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So this CEDAW or the CEDAW, no, it promotes gender equality and protects women's rights. In many countries in Asia, there are a lot of cases involving domestic violence, involving children who are being sexually harassed, who are being exploited, no, women who experience unfair treatment in terms of labor. Basically, this convention uh is their basis to say that this commission or omissions are violations of human rights. Because again, we have to remember that women's rights are human rights. Next slide. And of course, in the Philippines, we have our constitution similarly with India. Next slide. Now, next slide, please. I want to highlight in particular the obligation of the state to human rights. These are the state obligation. Always remember, when we discuss human rights, there are two personalities, the duty bearers and the rights holder. So the duty bearers is anyone who is part of the state, anyone that is uh, affiliated with the state. Understood? So we can have the law enforcement agents, our judiciary, the court, the lawmakers, our mayor, the governor, or the president. No, these are all under the state. So what are their obligations to human rights? They have the obligation to respect, the obligation to protect, and the obligation to fulfill. Can we say it again? Obligation to respect, obligation to protect, and obligation to fulfill. Clear? So now, when we speak of respecting human rights, it says that the state must refrain from interfering with or curtailing the enjoyment of human rights. When we speak of protect, the state must protect individuals and groups against uh, human rights abuses by third parties. And lastly, when we speak of fulfill, state must take positive action to facilitate the enjoyment of basic human rights. So, next slide. Again, we do have two personalities. We just learned about the obligations of our duty bearers. What about our rights holder? They also have an obligation for human rights. So when we speak of the when we speak here of individuals, this is basically non-state actors. So the non-state actors, they have the responsibilities to uh to respect the rights of others and to exercise their rights responsibly. So every person, every person must respect human rights of others, ensuring that their action do not infringe on the rights of others. and their responsibility extend to various aspects of daily life, from personal interaction to professional conduct. Individuals are also expected to exercise their human rights responsibly. This means that while individuals have the freedom to express themselves, practice their religion, and engage in various activities, they must do so in a such manner that does not harm or violate the rights of others. So responsible exercise helps maintain a social harmony and upholds the principles that everyone deserves to enjoy their fundamental freedoms. Clear? Now, I want you to you've been hearing this from me. Next slide, please. That I am affiliated with the Commission on Human Rights. The Commission of Human Rights is not a this is not a CSO or an NGO. We are actually a government agency. We are the National Human Rights Institute of the Philippines, level A, no? So now, our uh each region in our country, they have a regional office that could actually investigate cases involving human rights violation. So I would like to highlight, of course, the mantra of the Commission on Human Rights stating that isang CHR para sa lahat. What does it mean? One CHR for all. You understood? So one CHR for all. So again, I am affiliated with this office and we do a lot of promotional, protection, prevention, and policy work to boost the morale of the people living in that particular jurisdiction. Clear? Are we clear? Yes, clear. Now, next slide, please. Do not use human rights violation interchangeably with human rights abuse. Why? Because it has a different definition. It is very important. People tend to say, this is a human rights violation. When we speak of human rights violation, the perpetrators are state actors. The perpetrators are duty bearers. So be very careful on using human rights violation. Because the connotation or the definition under the international standards or the international human rights law, when we speak of human rights violation, who are the perpetrators? The state actors or the duty bearers. Whereas in human rights abuses, the perpetrators are non-state actors. Are we clear? So again, human rights violation, state actor. Human rights abuse, non-state actor. Next slide. The question now, why do we investigate? Why do we investigate? Because what is the primary purpose of investigating human rights violation? We want to gather accurate data and evidence, no? And this includes determining culpability, establishing facts, collecting witness testimony, and analyzing evidence. So basically, what we want is to discover the truth, no? We want facts. And forensic science is actually one of the pieces of evidence that leading us to determining the true facts. And there is only one true facts, right? And we need forensic science for that. And what is the purpose of our investigation in our office? Next slide. The purpose of the CHR investigation is, of course, justice and resolution. We conduct investigation, or the Commission on Human Rights conducts investigation to seek justice. And I want to extend this further, uh, with with the use of the term criminal justice. So it is not confined to justice, but also extend to social justice, because the commission is advocating, of course, for the rights of those who cannot defend themselves. When we speak of social justice, the very short definition that I could think of is to those who have less in life should have more in law. So if you are poor, if you live in the slums area, the state must protect you. The state must give you more protection in terms of law. Understood? Right. So now, how do we conduct our investigation in the office, in the commission? Our investigation, next slide please, should be thorough, timely, and fair. Effective human rights investigation must be thorough, ensuring that all relevant evidence is collected and analyzed. They should be conducted in a timely manner to prevent delays in justice. Diba? Because justice delay is justice denied. And also fairness, no? This is a crucial, no, factor because uh we have to ensure that investigations are impartial and objective, providing a credible basis for any subsequent legal actions. Always remember, I'm sorry, no, I carry out myself now speaking in Filipino, but uh, what I want you to remember is that uh, in all forensic science investigations or techniques that you are using right now, if you are investigating, always think of a human rights-based approach. Why are you doing this? How are you doing this? You are doing this because to promote just to gather facts and to ensure justice and social justice. How are you doing this? You should be doing this thoroughly with conscious as to the time, and you have to do this with fairness. Clear? Now, adhering to these principles of thoroughness, timeliness, and fairness, it demonstrates a commitment to best practices in human rights investigation. This approach, it does not only strengthens the integrity of the investigation, but also enhances public trust in the process and its outcome. Now, next slide, please. There are different uh approach in terms of investigation. So, in criminal law, in civil law, in human rights law, investigation could be seen differently. So, in criminal law, for example, no, investigation are generally conducted by state law enforcement agencies, such as the police officers. These investigation can be initiated by a complaint to the police or by an office or by an officer who becomes aware of a crime. The goal is to gather evidence that can be used in criminal prosecutions. Whereas in civil law and human rights, in civil law, the investigations are often conducted by the parties involved, their legal representatives or the private investigators. In human rights context, of course, the investigations are typically carried out by the employees of the national human rights institutions, such as the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines. And these investigations aim to determine if there has been a breach, if there has been an infringement, or if there has been a violation of human rights, often using an inquisitorial rather than an adversarial approach. So, on the next slide, next please, you will see the characteristics of human rights investigation. So listen very carefully. This is very important. You always remember that human rights investigation, it is these are generally inquisitorial rather than adversarial. This means that the investigation is directed towards discovering the truth rather than contesting between parties. So the focus is on what? On establishing that it is more probable than not than the alleged violation occurred. And these investigations are concerned with the nature and effect of the act in question. They use overt methods, ensuring transparency and openness in the process. This approach helps in accurately documenting human rights violations and understanding their impact on victims. Next slide. And the investigation in human rights, it could be because of we want to resolve something, we want to refer it for court action, or we want to have an administrative determination. So, one approach, as you have heard, in handling complaints is to conduct investigation aimed at gathering sufficient information, no, to attempt, of course, a resolution. And this involves understanding the details of the complaint and facilitating discussions or mediations to resolve the issue amicably. In the administrative determination and court referral, these are another approach that are ad, uh, administrative in nature. The goal here is to actually establish if a violation of human rights has occurred. Additionally, investigation may aim to gather evidence for referral to the court, ensuring that there is sufficient evidence to pursue legal action in the perpetrators of human rights violation. So for example, I am filing a case of torture against one jail officer. How can we prove if this incident actually existed? Of course, no, we have to the our complainant victim must undergo uh uh medical legal or autopsy, no, to identify uh or medical examination to identify the bruises, no, or whether or not the impact of whatever that they have done, no, into the body of the victim complainant. Understood? So because we want to file a case. Now, let's take a look very briefly. Next slide, please. The human rights situation in the Philippines. No, next slide. Next slide. Sorry. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. So now, you can see since 2016, there have been numerous reports of extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. So with estimate reaching up to 20,000 cases by 2021. And of course, red tagging, which leads to targeting and killing of activists, has also been a significant issue with 427 documented cases. So these figures highlight the severe uh, human rights challenges in the country. So what is the role of forensic science into this? Well, forensic science is crucial in investigating these violations again, no? Providing the necessary documents to document or necessary evidence to document and understand the extent of the abuses. So forensics investigation can identify patterns of violence and bring accountability to those responsible, thereby addressing the systemic issues that lead to such human rights violation. Are you still with me? Can I see a thumbs up there? Yes. Now, what are the challenges? Next slide, please. Next slide. So, these are some of the, of the ongoing human rights violations in the country. Previous slide, no? If you see on the previous slide, please. Go back. Go back, sorry. Go back, please. Now, if you will see, I have this photo of a girl, no, because domestic violence during the COVID-19 pandemic is very prevalent. Now, next slide. And for the records of the commission, the major violator of the human rights or the major cause of human rights violation comes from the law enforcement agencies. Next slide. So here are some statistical data as to the challenges in investigating human rights cases. So, well, a significant challenge in investigating human rights cases in this country is the heavy reliance on testimonial evidence. No? Next slide please. According to Go and Dr. De Ongria, no, in 2019, more than 90% of the cases depend solely on the testimonies, which may not always be reliable or sufficient to establish the facts. So I want you to know that the lack of thorough forensic investigations hinders the ability to substantiate claims and hold the perpetrators accountable. Now, what is the role of forensic science in human rights investigation? Number one, next slide, please. Next slide. Of course, no, number one is establishing facts and corroborating evidence. Previous slide, please. In establishing facts and corroborating evidence, the forensic science plays a vital role in verifying witness statements and ensuring the factual accuracy of claims. So, techniques such as DNA analysis, fingerprinting, and digital forensics add credibility on the testimonies, making it possible to substantiate allegations of human rights violation. No, we also have this the systemic use of forensic methods. No, the systemic use of forensic methods helps in establishing a clear and accurate picture of events. So this is not only aids in the investigation, not only in the investigation process, but also enhances the chances of achieving justice by providing concrete evidence that can withstand legal scrutiny. Next, of course, forensic science, next slide please, no, help in crime scene documentation and analysis. So crime scene documentation, as you have learned throughout this conference, is a critical aspect of forensic science or forensic investigation. So it involves the examination of the scene through evidence, collection, photography, and mapping. This approach ensures that all potential evidence is preserved and recorded accurately. No, and of course, no, we want to uncover the details and the patterns, no, because uncovering this hidden details might be helpful in the promotion of human rights. Next, next slide, please. We also have collective and preservation of physical evidence. Of course, forensic science for our forensic specialists are responsible for the systematic collection and preservation of biological and material evidence. So proper techniques must be followed to ensure that evidence is not contaminated or degraded. And also, we have the autopsies and post-mortem examination. The rules on forensic the role of forensic pathologists. Always remember that forensic pathologies are integral to human rights. No, especially in our work with regard to investigation when determining the manner and cause of death. Because autopsies conducted by these experts, but eventually by you, no, they provide crucial insights into human rights abuses, such as the torture, EJK, and other forms of violence. And the findings from autopsies and postmortem examinations are meticulously documented and can serve as a powerful evidence in legal proceedings. So basically, these examinations help establish timelines, no, identify the instruments used, and provide a clearer understanding, no, of what? Of the circumstances surrounding the death. Next slide. We also have, of course, next slide, please.
refuting false narratives and promoting advocacy. So, the forensic science, as we all know, it play a significant role in refuting false narratives and promoting accountability. So, accurate forensic science or accurate uh, forensic evidence can debunk false claims and provide irrefutable proof of human rights abuses or violations if that's the case. So these ensure that justice is based on factual evidence rather than the misleading information. Clear? No, now, next slide, please. Of course, very, very important is the legal admissibility of this case. Okay? Next slide. So these are some of the laws that you would like to consider reading, no? Maybe there are some of the books here in the maybe these are some of the laws, no, that the country that our country has that you might want to discover so that you will learn how the Philippines actually promotes human rights. No? Next slide. So these are some of the good thing that we are doing here, no? Because our because uh forensic experts, no, they are considered key witnesses in human rights cases. They offer their specialized knowledge to aid the court. Next slide. So again, we have discussed this again. Next slide, please. Now, I want to draw your attention with regard to the type of human rights violation and the forensic field that you can apply based on the topic that we have provided. For example, in forensic toxicology, no? In toxicology involves the detection and interpretation of drugs, alcohols, and poisons in biological samples. So this field is essential in case involving drug use, overdose, and exposing to toxic substance. And this is actually one of the products. No. Next, we also have forensic chemistry. Forensic chemistry focuses on identifying and characterizing substances related to illegal drugs, explosives, and hazardous. Uh, uh, I'm sorry, no. When we speak of toxicology, basically, uh, what you have learned, diba? Is it involves the detection and interpretation of drugs, alcohol, and poisons in biological samples. Whereas we also have forensic chemistry, 'di ba? In forensic chemistry, uh it focuses on identifying and characterizing substances related to illegal drugs, explosives, and other hazardous materials. Well, this field is also crucial in cases involving drug trafficking, terrorism, and environmental crimes. So you see, there in any type of human rights violation, there is a counterpart forensic field. You follow? Next slide, please. No. Ayan. So, we will just go through with this because for the benefit of the time, I only have 30 minutes overall with my presentation, but I really want you to appreciate the beauty of this one. I want you to see that in every type of human rights violation, there is a forensic field that we can rely into to produce evidence, no, pieces of evidence that will determine the truth. You follow? Next slide. Yes. Oh, now on the screen, you will see that because I want you to understand that human rights work involves vulnerable sector. right? So now I pointed out on the screen some of the vulnerable sectors and what are the forensic field that could actually help them protect their rights. So women, we have forensic nursing and forensic psychology. So I hope you are aware no, by this time about forensic nursing and forensic psychology. So when we speak of forensic nursing, uh, well, it's all about what? It's all about what? No? It involves providing medical care to the victims of crime while also collecting and preserving evidence. Because forensic nurses, they play a crucial role in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse. All right, so that's why. No? Okay, next slide, please. You see, most of the vulnerable sectors that we could think of, there is a counterpart forensic field. No, I wish we have more time no, to discuss this because this is very useful. No, when I was doing this presentation, I was overwhelmed no, on how forensics is connected to all human rights work. No, you see earlier the types of human rights violation from extrajudicial killings up to rape and sexual abuses. Now you are seeing the list of vulnerable sectors and the forensic field that could be applicable to them. Again, these are these are not the forensic fields are not exclusive. No, it it could actually overlap. It could actually be used several times. No, for look, I want you to focus on the persons living with HIV. You see, there is this medical forensics and forensics epidemiology. So when we speak of this, you basically we're helping these persons living with HIV to ensure that their rights are upheld and protected. Next slide, please. And again, we have labor rights or the labor sector, the migrant workers, and the persons with disability and their counterpart forensic fields. For example, in migrant workers, we have immigrational forensics and financial forensics because many of the migrant workers, no, they remain poor, they are really victims of several scheme or estafa or scam, right? So that could be very useful to them. Okay? Next. Now, these are some other vulnerable sectors. We have the urban poor, the persons deprived of liberty. Basically, we call it PDLs or persons deprived of liberty, but these are prisoners or detainees. Okay? Next slide. I'm almost done. No, I'm sorry. I already extended. But please bear with me. The so that is access my presentation, or you can email me so that you can have the copy of this presentation and let's improve together. Let's in promoting and respecting their rights. Next slide. Next slide. So now, how can we, what is the importance of investing in forensic analysis? So basically, uh, what I want, no, next slide, please. No. So we want collaboration between legal professionals and forensic experts. No. Next slide. We also want promoting the use of forensic science by institutions, by law enforcement agents, by women's desks, by educational institutions, in actually in capacity building of those persons involved in investigations. No, what else? We want, next slide, please. And now, very briefly, I would like to introduce to you the case of what this is one of the sensational case in the Philippines, the case of the so-called Visconde massacre. This case involves the gang rape of a 19-year-old woman, the murder of her 7-year-old sister and their mother on 1991 at their home in Metro Manila. This case gained notoriety due to the involvement of high-profile individuals, including the son of a former Philippine senator. So here, what is the role of the forensic in this case? The prosecution of this case highlighted the importance of forensic evidence in court trials. Despite challenges such as the inability of the National Bureau of Investigation to produce DNA specimen, forensic findings played a critical role in the trial. So the Supreme Court in this particular case acknowledged the potential of exonerating power of DNA evidence, emphasizing its importance in achieving justice. Next slide. And we have the case of J. Suarez, no, People versus Suarez. J. Suarez was charged with the illegal sale and possession of dangerous drugs under the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 here in the Philippines. So the case required establishing an unbroken chain of custody to ensure the integrity of the seized drugs. Because in drugs cases, we have to keep in mind that the corpus delicti or the body of the crime is the drug itself. So there must be an unbroken chain to from the arrest or from the apprehension up to the presentation of drugs in the court. So what is the role of forensic science here? The forensic chemist conducted qualitative examination on the seized items, confirming the presence of marijuana. So the court emphasized the importance of maintaining an unbroken chain of custody to preserve the evidentiary value of the seized drug. This case underscores the critical role of forensic procedures in ensuring the reliability and admissibility of evidence in court. Lastly, we have the case of Kian de los Santos. No, I'm not. Next slide, please. Next slide. No, next. There's a lot of cases, but I want to discuss the case of Kian de los Santos. Previous slide, please. The case of Kian de los Santos, this is the only one, no? Out of several extrajudicial killings cases in the Philippines, this is one of the many cases na that the perpetrator was actually the perpetrators were actually convicted. No? So the case of Kian de los Santos involves the killing of a teenager during an anti-drug operation in the Philippines. So the initial post-mortem examination conducted by the PNP and the Public Attorney's Office were questions for their thoroughness. So forensic expert Dr. Raquel Fortun, she conducted a subsequent examination uncovering another bullet in Kian's body based on X-ray findings. This case highlights the importance of thorough forensics examination and the role of forensic experts in challenging and validating findings from the initial investigation. That is why one of my recommendations at the end of this presentation is to establish an independent institution in uncovering these kinds of evidences, these kinds of pieces of evidence in human rights violations cases. Now, next slide. Next slide. So to wrap up, no, these are some of the impacts. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide. So to conclude my presentation, next slide. No, these are some of my recommendations. Number one, let's acknowledge the beauty of forensic science in human rights investigation because it ensures accountability and it can be used in the deterrence and preventions of human rights violations and abuses. Next slide. And the use of forensic methodologies or techniques will help us to create a credible and well-substantiated case. And it is aligned with international human rights standards and obligation. And basically, it can provide a voice for victims by uncovering the truth and validating their experiences. I would like to highlight that forensic methodologies and techniques give a voice to the victims of human rights violations and abuses. Keep that in mind. Again, forensic methodologies and techniques can actually give a voice for victims of human rights violations and abuses by uncovering the truth and validating their experiences. So next slide. Next slide. So these are some of the recommendations. No, you as forensic science students, forensic science experts, uh, forensic science enthusiasts, and to all of the people watching now on YouTube, no, or in the whole of Sandeep University, I challenge all of you that we have to do something. And what do we need to do? Let's consult each other. Legal professionals, forensic science experts, let us work hand in hand to help the victims of human rights violation. Let's coordinate and let's collaborate. Because at the end of the day, we have one goal, and that is to promote justice. Right? Next slide. So allow me to end this presentation by reminding everyone of the principle of the human rights-based approach in everything that you do. Not just in investigating human rights violations or abuses, not just in conducting forensic science or forensic techniques, but in everything you do, you have to be guided by this human rights-based approach. And what does it mean? When we speak of human rights-based approach, always remember that the human person is the central subject. The human person is the active participant. It is the owner. It is the director. And it is the beneficiary. Next slide. Because at the end of the day, there could be no human rights without development. And there is no development without human rights. We want a world, a developed country, a world with a progressive development. But we cannot do this without promoting, respecting, and protecting human rights. So that will be all. Next slide, please. No? So this is our human rights situation report, and I hope you can check out the Commission on Human Rights Region 3 Facebook page. And basically, you will see our efforts in promoting and respecting human rights. Last slide, please. Last slides. Next slide, next slide. So, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much. And I hope you learn a thing or two from my presentation. Together, let's build a world with empathy, understanding, and love for human rights. Maraming salamat. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me and you can scan the QR code po for the copy of my presentation. Thank you very much.
You shed light on human rights and its accessibility on forensics was surely informative. Thank you very much. Our conference has been enhanced by your commitment and participation. Thank you once again for your time and for being part of our event. Thank you, sir.
Thank you everyone and have a great day.
So you can leave the meeting. Thank you. Next technical session will include